Good morning to everyone. Thank you for being there. And thank you, FinTech Americas, for the opportunity. My name is Gabriel Gomejiglio. I'm a partner with Baker McKenzie, and I have the distinguished pleasure to serve as chair of the Latin American banking and finance practice of our firm. We have a distinguished panelist here today joining me in this session. But as you may know, this year, banking was disrupted at a speed and depth unthinkable at the beginning of 2020. In short order, banking forces flows in newly transformed processes. As the industry has adapted to the changes in the environment, many banking leaders are finding that the newly created structures and approaches provide opportunities for creating innovative hybrid models of operations. Whether these changes become permanent will in large part up to regulators to decide. In this panel discussion, hear from the world-class regulatory experts on the lessons learned from the banking industry's response to the pandemic and ideas on how best to move forward in the next normal. My first question would be to you, Joanne. Kindly please first introduce yourself, but I was wondering whether this year we have seen the banking industry, all the industries turns up, and from your perspective, what has been the biggest lesson learned?
Thank you, Gabrielle, and good morning, everyone. I'm Joanne Barefoot. I am CEO and co-founder of the Alliance for Innovative Regulation, or AIR, which is a nonprofit seeking to digitize and modernize the financial regulatory system worldwide. And I'm also a former bank regulator myself at Beth Knickerbocker's agency, the controller of the currency in the United States. I think the big lesson that we should all take from this experience is to speed up. We have seen technology changes that would have taken a decade in 1 year. Both in the industry and at the bank regulators, everyone is speeding up all kinds of activities that in the past have been mostly in the analog format, have been driven into digital and mobile channels at a tremendous pace. For the industry, that includes customer onboarding, new kinds of underwriting. I have a podcast show called Barefoot Innovation, which I would commend to you all. And I talked yesterday with one of the major credit reporting agencies, which is moving to real-time reporting of information, rather than monthly updating. Everyone is speeding up. For the regulators, it's the same thing. Regulators all over the world are trying to figure out how to move to digital regulatory reporting channels, DRR, in order to get real-time information because they're looking at such a volatile, fast-changing environment. And in my view, your intro asked the question, will these changes be permanent? I think there's no going back. I think once people are working in digital formats, they have their pros and cons, but basically they're just better, they're faster, they're more comprehensive in terms of the information that they generate, and I don't think we're ever going back. So I think we have to move quickly. I think the lesson for us all is if we don't move fast enough, we're going to be left behind in the huge changes as technology transforms the financial and regulatory sector in the months and years ahead.
So hi, I'm Beth Knickerbocker. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency in the United States. We are responsible for what's called the federal banking system, which is National Banks and Federal Savings Association.
Thank you so much, Joanne. And turning back to you, Beth, please briefly introduce yourself, but after the introduction, please let us know from your professional perspective, how you evaluate the risks of the transformation the industry has experienced on the fly in response to the COVID-19.
So hi, I'm Beth Knickerbocker. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at the OCC, or the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency in the United States. We're responsible for the federal banking system, which is made up of national banks and federal savings associations. And I would start with agreeing with Joanne about the fact that these changes are, at least we believe, more permanent than not. The pandemic has demonstrated the need for digitalization by consumers, businesses, and communities all over the United States and the world. And they're moving to these channels in waves that we haven't seen before. So digitization, the use of apps, and conducting mobile banking is now a necessity as opposed to a nice to have or something that's pretty cool on a phone. This is really something now that all consumers recognize to some degree that they need. And with that, and what we've seen with respect to the pandemic is, first, we can do it. If we need to change and need to change quickly, we can do that. The industry, government, everyone is able to switch possibly. And with respect to the US government, you've seen that with how quickly we moved with a number of different regulations, guidance, ways to facilitate the government's response to the pandemic here in the United States. We have seen risks that do need to be managed, however. Change management risk is key. We literally changed on a dime in how the banks delivered services to customers. Call centers, for instance, went from being in one room to everyone doing that online virtually. And that raises some risk about, can we do that effectively? There's also increased cyber risk, and there's an increase in technology risk that we all need to manage and understand.
Thank you so much, Beth. I'm turning to you, Laura, and after your brief introduction, basically about yourself, are there any specific issues related to rapid transformation in industry like banks to be looking out for?
Yes. So my name is Laura Clavijo, and I am the Director of Innovation at the Financial Superintendency in Colombia. And what we've been seeing, especially focusing on the LATAM region, is that the past couple of years, we have really picked up on the digital transformation of banking. So we're seeing how financial inclusion, being one of our biggest objectives, has really been enabled by something like the pandemic. The pandemic for us has been some sort of enhancer of digital adoption. It has changed how consumers are engaging to these digital channels in terms of how e-commerce has been picking up, something that was not really so frequent in our daily lives. We're seeing how government has effectively overnight dispersed cash transfers in the wake of the pandemic, trying to help consumers stay at home and be able to do their day, go on with their daily lives in these digital channels. And really overnight, at least the Colombian government, I know also Brazil, Mexico have some similar experiences, but we have been able to engage from a government's perspective to the needs of the consumers. So we had previously really picked up on our digital transformation, enabling digital onboarding, but really adoption was not quite there. So that's something that we're seeing in the wake of the pandemic. The really big questions that us regulators are looking at is, how are we going to go about this new digital adoption to really make it a permanent change, seeing all the benefits that this has brought? In the matter of just 6 months, our financial inclusion goal of reaching 85% of our Colombian population with at least one financial product, we were able to do that in 6 months, whereas we were hoping to do that by 2022. So we're really seeing this as the opportunity and that leapfrog effect as policymakers to engage going forward. What do we see? Where what we really need to be working on is really building a robust ecosystem that enables interoperability, fast payments, trust in these digital channels, the use of data that comes from other types of transactions, that sort of these new unbanked or underserved clients are now going into the digital world. How are we going to make benefit of all that data that is there provided? And I think that as policymakers and government, we really have a really big task to going forward in terms of the ecosystem, where of course, open banking is definitely a really important approach, but it's not the only one. We also see how we're trying to engage fintechs with traditional banks and serving that type of population. As my previous panelists have stated, it can be done. We're forced to be doing it right now. The thing is, what are we going to do to make this a permanent and really engaging change for the much needed population in Latin America?
Thank you so much, Lara. Really, really interesting. And picking up on your point and Beth's point before regarding digitalization, we know from a legal viewpoint that this will raise loads of challenges when it comes up basically to the inclusion of new prospective clients, prospective customers in all different jurisdictions. But I was wondering, and I would like Joanne inputs on this. How do you see this as of action that basically will generate all these new challenges to the financial industry, considering that this will have an additional cost, of course, for financial institutions, and basically regulators really have to go the extra mile generating that discussion and basically trying to implement whatever regulation in place to have a safe banking for all customers and all potential customers, especially.
So I very strongly agree with everything that's being said, especially your comment, Laura, about the opportunity for financial inclusion really leaping forward here. And also your point about the leapfrog effect. One of the things that is happening in many emerging markets is a big opportunity to leapfrog, because the financial services ecosystem is already more mobile than, say, in the United States. And there's already digital channels there to work with. The challenges for regulators are tremendous. And I couldn't agree more with you, Gabrielle, that we need to focus on regulators helping to lead a new dialogue. There will be costs in converting, but once we have a digitized regulatory system, it will be less expensive to run it than the one we have now, which is very expensive because it's full of old, slow, costly, manual, labor-focused processes. So as we move to these new formats, I think it will really help. I think we're going to make the regulatory system smart. And when I say that, I don't mean make regulators smarter. They're already smart, but their tools are not very smart and traditionally they've been pretty old-fashioned compared to what we have in the digital age. I think some of the huge challenges are we'll be getting all this data available. We know we're living in an explosion of new data, and we're going to analyze it with artificial intelligence and tools like machine learning, which will drive down costs. There are many challenges in making sure that that is fair, that an AI-based system is soundly designed, it's using enough data, it's not using biased data, it's not teaching itself biases, that the human brain can't fully follow the logic of what's being learned. I think we'll also have tremendous challenges, and Laura, you touched on them, in the transformation of payment systems. We are looking at the emergence of central bank digital currencies around the world. I think 30 countries have active projects of considering issuing some form of fiat CBDC. And how is that going to interrelate to existing payment systems? How are we going to build consumer protection on that new model? I could go on, but many, many challenges, but all leading to a vastly, vastly more inclusive, more fair, more transparent, less expensive financial system and financial regulatory system.
Thank you so much, Joan, for your input. I mean, there are so many challenges, but what really resonates with me are two different things. One is the word dialogue. We're talking about dialogue between regulators and financial players. So not necessarily having a top-down approach, because the regulators are very close to the market and understand much better how things are evolving. And I would like, Beth, if you have any specific input on this, considering your experience or the issues that you are seeing in your practice.
Yes, so the OCC started looking at innovation back in 2015, and one of the first things that we were focused on was increasing the dialogue that we had with industry. So as a bank regulator, you can imagine we had a lot of dialogue with banks and federal savings associations, but there are obviously many more players in the banking system than just banks. There are fintechs, there are community groups, trade associations, just a whole variety of different stakeholders that are very important to understand and to listen to, particularly with respect to innovation and emerging trends. So the Office of Innovation in part was created to build a formal channel to be able to talk to all aspects of the industry. And it's enabled the OCC to really, using that term leapfrog, its knowledge and understanding of emerging trends as they're being developed. Oftentimes, regulators in the past would sit back and watch the industry develop and then react to that at a later date. Sometimes that was positive, sometimes that was negative. And this way, with the new approach, we're able to learn right beside the industry as it is growing and as we see consumer and business trends change. So that's really enabled us to be smarter about what's going on, to react more quickly, to, in some cases, not react and watch things develop. So it's made us a much more nimble regulator. And we're looking forward to taking the next step now that we've learned so much to really start to build policy around this that can be more effective as these trends continue to develop. They're not going away and they're increasing. So it's important for us to play an active role.
Thank you so much, Beth, for your input. I'm really glad to see, how this discussion provokes new issues to discuss and new subject matters. But even though we are running out of time, I would like, Laura's view on the different regulators in the region. If you see a trend, or if you see basically that they are up to the discussion to have with colleagues in the US, with colleagues in big financial institutions, I got a feeling that basically all countries are getting and learning much faster than in the past, and all regulators are really up to speed, or getting really up to speed to how these discussions. Do you have any particular view on this?
Yes, well, there's a very interesting report put out just recently on the wake, in the light of the pandemic of COVID-19, and how regulators have reacted or changed their strategy or prioritized in terms of their innovation initiatives. And the vast majority of regulators that answered worldwide this survey show that their innovation initiatives have been enhanced and are even moving forward, and basically no one has sort of picked up what they were doing and sort of went another way. Quite the contrary. The wake of this pandemic, the need of digital channels, the need to really service the vast majority of population through remote digital channels has really set forward our own innovation initiatives. So this is something worldwide. Regulatory sandboxes have been very active in the wake of the pandemic. Innovation hubs have been sort of spurring all over the world. And definitely our road in Colombia and many of the countries in Latin America as well has really sort of picked up in the wake of what we should be doing in terms of innovation, technology, and putting forward this digital adoption to a new level. So definitely seeing what we can do there. In a global manner, it's very also important to really reach out to other regulators. And in that sense, Colombia is, with other countries in Latin America, such as Mexico and Brazil, actively participating in the Global Financial Innovation Network, the GFIN, and really just speaking to the regulators in this panel or in other countries regarding what they're seeing in terms of technology, cybersecurity, and other very similar challenges that we have in terms of fraud or ALM with other countries, and speaking firsthand with these regulators and sort of these special panels or the networks has really enhanced our own position to speak to the industry. So definitely that dialogue is very important, and it has really picked up with the industry to learn from them and them from us. That really the result is just faster and more engaging discussions in terms of where we should be moving forward. And I think that's one of the biggest success, I guess, of these innovation offices in terms of what we're seeing for the world.
Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you so much, Laura, Beth, and Joanne, for your insight and for your views. I like to see everyone really passionate about all the developments, and all these issues that we discussed are here to stay. So we're going to be catching up with FinTech Americas and all the viewers and participants in these events, because I got the feeling that all these issues will remain here for quite a long time. And all these discussions that we are having and our vision, basically leaders in the region from a regulatory viewpoint, from a professional viewpoint, from a banking and financial area are still having, are going to be very exciting, and looking forward to work with you all and to participate in those discussions and to have better insight for all the audience. Thank you so much, FinTech Americas. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Lara.
Thank you.
Thank you.